In 2019, a football club that had existed for 134 years was thrown out of the English Football League. Not relegated, expelled. Bury Football Club, the Shakers, became the first club kicked out of the league in 27 years. And the thing that killed them wasn't the football. It was a pile of borrowed money, a mortgaged stadium, and a sale for £1. This is how Bury went under. Bury were founded in 1885 in a town just north of Manchester, and they played at Gigg Lane, one of the oldest grounds in the country. They were no minnows. Bury won the FA Cup twice. In 1903, they beat Derby County 6-0 in the final. Still the record-winning margin in an FA Cup final more than a century later. A proper old club woven into its town. So how does a 134-year-old institution simply cease to exist? The story really starts in 2013, when a property developer named Stuart Day took over a club that had nearly gone bust. At first it looked like a rescue. Day put money in, the club climbed, and in 2019, Bury won promotion out of League Two. The problem was where the money was coming from. Day didn't fund Bury out of profits. He funded it with loans, many of them from his own property businesses, which were themselves built on borrowed money. And here's the forensic masterstroke. When football's spending rules got in the way, those loans were simply converted into shares, so they vanished from the accounts as debt. Some of the borrowing was extraordinary. At one point, money was being lent to the club at an interest rate of 138% a year. And to keep it all going, Day did the thing you should never do with the family silver. He mortgaged the stadium. Gigg Lane itself was used as security for a loan. Borrowed money is only as safe as the person doing the borrowing. Stuart Day's property empire, a string of student accommodation companies, began to collapse, taking its lenders down with it. And when his businesses stopped paying Bury's bills, the club, which had been living on that drip feed, suddenly had nothing. By then, Bury owed Day's own companies millions. In December 2018, Stuart Day sold Bury Football Club to a businessman called Steve Dale. The price was £1. Dale, it emerged, had been involved in dozens of companies, many of which had ended up in liquidation. He had not given the league proof that he could fund the club, and he never really would. So Bury started the 2019 season promoted, broke and unpaid. Players and staff going weeks without wages. Facing a winding-up petition, Dale pushed through a deal with the club's creditors to pay them a fraction of what they were owed. Under league rules, that counted as an insolvency event, and Bury were docked 12 points before a ball was kicked. The league gave Dale deadline after deadline to prove he had the money. He didn't. Game after game was suspended. Bury never actually played a match that season, and the mortgaged stadium came back to bite. At the crucial moment, the lender holding the charge over Gigg Lane was owed around £3.7 million, with interest ticking up every day. That debt, sitting on the one asset a buyer would want, scared off rescuers. A last-minute takeover was agreed, and then, barely half an hour before the final deadline, the buyer walked away. On the 27th of August 2019, the EFL expelled Bury Football Club. 134 years of continuous membership ended in a statement. They were the first club out of the league since 1992. Later, the club was put into administration with liabilities of more than £12.5 million. Gigg Lane went dark, but this one has an ending the others don't. Bury's fans refused to let the club die. They started again from the bottom, formed a new club, and kept the flame going. And in 2023, with the help of a lifelong supporter who'd made his money abroad, they bought back Gigg Lane, the name and the history, from the administrators. Bury Football Club plays at Gigg Lane again today, several divisions below where it was, but alive. The lesson is an old one, wearing a football shirt. A club run on borrowed money, propped up by an owner's other borrowed money, with its own ground pledged as security and its losses hidden by turning debt into shares. That isn't a football club. It's a balance sheet holding its breath. Bury held its breath for years. Then it stopped. The difference is that this time, the town wouldn't let it stay gone. Anyway,